out the arrow, and now Riddle looking to try and turn this one around.
When I became 10, 11 years old, I went to my friend's house a weekend and he told me about League of Legends when I had my laptop back then, and he told me to download it, and we just played that for like 40 hours straight, and I got to level 30 the first weekend, and I just loved the game. After a couple of years, 2-3 years, when it came around season 3, I started getting really high rank, and I got to Challenger when I was 14. I got to top 50 in Europe, and I saw like I'm actually good at this game. I started playing with pro players back then, like XPK, and since then I've just played high rank league and met a lot of pros, and then I started becoming a pro myself.
He finds a double kill. This should be game for Riddle. They're teleporting in. They're going to close the game.
From a team that has picked up their first win to a team that is yet to be defeated, Fnatic are taking on Dusty in Group B. We are going to move through this because this is obviously a rough matchup for Dusty. Fnatic are absolutely the best team in the league by a country mile right now, and Dusty have been anything but consistent. Medic, where do we start with Dusty? Oh, Medic is gone. Someone else. Dan, where do we start with Dusty? Because this is a big challenge for them.
I mean, I think for me, I'm looking at the mid jungle. I think I've always thought Legions is a really formidable player. Has been a little bit inconsistent this split, but him and in particular Chelm, who has actually been the best performing member, in my opinion, of Dusty, I think they can look to challenge MagiFelix and Dan. Dan is the trickier of the two, but MagiFelix has shown some inconsistencies, particularly in the early game, and I think it's important to be able to shut him down because he is still that late game powerhouse. So win the mid jungle, look to get an advantage in the priority mid lane, rotate that outwards, and you might have a chance at a strong early game that you can transition into a lead later.
Yeah, and I think we're glad to join Medic back on the desk, by the way. He's
Welcome back.
He had to dip out for just a moment. But I think one of the big things for Dusty is that they have to tackle the best team in the league. And that is a tall order in terms of mentality as well. I'm struggling to see an avenue. Like, even with Legions and Chelm, I'm struggling to see an avenue.
I think one of the weakest, I mean, sometimes it's a strength, sometimes it's a weakness, but the way that Dusty drafts sometimes makes the game really complicated for their players. And I don't think complicated is very good when you're going up against the best team in the league. I think you got some good individual players, as Ox is mentioning, but you need to make the game easier for them sometimes. And even though you got great players, a good composition in the perfect world is not necessarily the composition that's going to flourish in the real world. So sometimes I wish that Dusty would just relax a bit, draft some better comfort, or just easier to execute compositions and make the team have an easier time. Because we've seen that decision making sometimes falter when they don't have a composition fitting them.
Yeah, and I think Dusty will be quite grateful to MNM as well, because with MNM picking up a win and now looking like a challenger, they play against Barrage next week, and so Dusty could sneak into the bottom of playoffs without actually having to really show us too much more. I totally agree with you though, Goldborg. Like, they just overcomplicate things for themselves, and at this level, like, fundamentals are the most important thing, right? Like, I want to see Dusty go back to the fundamentals, just constantly play these compositions that work for them instead of trying to be inventive, because this isn't the time to be inventive.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room, but for the most part, we've seen Excel default back to more of a team fighting focus, a very easy to execute composition, play around the strength of your team. And I think sometimes when you try and think outside the box, you get a little bit too far away from it and can make things a struggle. I also want to highlight that for me, it feels like the pressure is pretty low on Dusty for this game. Fnatic haven't lost to anyone. The way you have to essentially see it is that a game against Fnatic is a free loss, okay? So if you manage to pull a win out here, it's getting an advantage that no other team has been able to, and it can find that difference between the other teams in the standings. And if you don't manage to win this game, then I mean, no one else got a point here anyway, so it's not like it drastically changes the situation. I think Dusty should just come out all guns blazing, see what sort of folds from the likes of Fnatic, potentially set you up for something in playoffs as well if you see a weak aspect of the lineup, and just look to target it there. We could maybe even see some pressure towards top lane, because we know Quinstons does have a tendency to lean on these split pushes.
And just exactly as Ox is saying with the standings, now the Trick actually lost the game. You can actually afford to start losing a bit as Fnatic too. You're looking really good at the top of the standings right now. So Fnatic can actually play a bit more relaxed. They don't have to sacrifice too much into this game. Whereas Dusty, they're playing for everything. As Dan said, they need to come out with their guns blazing.
I think the way that we look at it from Fnatic's side of point of view is either they go in and limit test, like we saw XL apparently doing throughout the season. So they go and look for something that they maybe aren't so confident on a stage setting and try and play that, or they just go for the clean record. And if I was Fnatic, I want the clean record. Like, you know, that's such a nice thing to have going into the playoff scenario, even though XL had it and lost previously. I just think having the ability to have a clean slate going into the sort of the tail end of the competition is a really nice, I guess, mental edge to have over your opponents. Now, guys, the draft is coming your way after a short break. We'll be back.
Let the sparks fly into a summer night. We're going eye to eye, running to the future blind. Running to the future blind. Nothing really matters. My midnight sun, taking out the darkness. And it's only just begun. And it's only just begun. Tell me all your dreams and put them on your sleeve. We're going eye to eye, running to the future blind. Let the sparks fly into a summer night. We're going eye to eye, running to the future blind. Nothing really matters. My midnight sun, taking out the darkness. And it's only just begun. And it's only just begun. Running to the future blind.
I never knew how much I could feel till I met you. It's like I'm seeing all the colors for the first time, and I'm hearing all the music for the first time. I watched you grow, sweeter than when spring warms the snow.
We're into Champ Select here, Fnatic versus Dusty. It is a huge ask for Dusty to come out on top in this game, but if they do, it will certainly make things interesting in Group B. It's going to be a Nidalee ban. It's going to be an Ashe ban, and obviously Thresh taken off the table as well.
Instantly, you start to see, okay, now the priority picks are getting away. It's been last time we didn't really see the Ashe pick come in the beginning. And you see that Chelm actually getting targeted a bit here. I think that's fine respect going into a player that really been popping against Trick last week too. Especially Dusty in general, as we have mentioned, could be on the upswing here. And we just need some simplistic draft here for me. So I really like the bans coming in here, getting rid of the Karma, getting rid of the Ashe. It's a lot of priority picks you're just getting rid of.
Yeah, at least the potentials for this last ban to me are the likes of the Karthus, the Set, the Volibear are the big ones that you're potentially concerned about leaving over for the side of the Fnatic Rising. Really comes down to whether Dusty want to ban one of those or forfeit one so they can pick up something in return. And I feel like with Karthus in particular, it's something that is super strong at the moment, but you're not sure whether every team has necessarily picked it up and is willing to play it. So potentially you could leave that one open if you feel you're confident that Fnatic Rising aren't necessarily going to take it, but they have left that open. Ezreal will be banned away by Dusty. We have a few power picks available for this first pick.
The thing is here, like, I trust Fnatic to know how to play most of the strong champions in the game, right? And whether it's Volibear, whether it like, if Dusty really know how to play Karthus well, then that's cool. You pick up Karthus here, but you're always going to be giving Fnatic something really strong by getting rid of the Karma and the Ezreal alongside the Ashe. So I don't think this is the best ban phase from Dusty. I think they gave Fnatic way too many options, and we'll see what they can bring out next. Because if they can surprise me, maybe, I mean, Senna TF seems like a good enough second rotation.
I was going to say, if you don't take the Twisted Faith here, you're just giving over to the enemy the Volibear Twisted Faith composition that we saw Riddle pull out earlier with great success. Senna has been paired up with Karthus a lot of times in other ERLs, so that Karthus is still a possibility. And they may be trying to call Fnatic Rising's bluff by saying, hey, you didn't first pick Karthus, maybe you don't have priority on it, so we can take it as a third pick instead.
And in this situation, it kind of forces your Aphelios because, you know, you've banned away the Ezreal, you banned away the Ashe, Kalista is available, but you're not going to play that into the TF. So it kind of enables a situation where they are just going to take that Aphelios. And what's interesting, we have seen Jack Spectre and Dusty play the Senna as an AD carry. We've seen it sort of come back a little bit after the buffs to it, but he was one of the first players to pick it up and play it, not the fasting Senna, play it in another regard. And now we see Chelm going for the Nocturne. So a lot of global pressure on both sides now with the Galio locked in for Fnatic as well.
Yeah, and in general, you start to think, okay, there's global on both compositions. We have a Galio, we have the Twisted Faith. Now you have the upper hand with the extra follow-up from this Nocturne. So you can actually opt into a 1-3-1 composition too, if you really want that, with great composition shattering from this Nocturne. So as Ox mentioned earlier in the pregame, if you really want Coincidence to go out there and contest Pride in a side lane, this might be the composition to do it too.
It definitely could work. I'm really surprised that we haven't seen the Karthus picked up at all. I understand the way the draft evolved with the Twisted Fate. You want the Galio to try and match the side pressure, and then the Nocturne to add a little bit more of that global pressure. But Karthus is still a jungle possibility here for Fnatic, and that gives you the Requiem to answer any of those like dives and side lanes. The only risk is Nocturne is pretty strong into Karthus early on, assuming that you can dodge away from some of the skizzles.
And I think what we could see, which would be crazy, is, I mean, it's unlikely, but I'm hyped in case it does. We could see Dusty actually take the Karthus, put a bot lane, have the Senna as the support to sort of help some of the sustain issues he has. And then they can pick a counter pick for Coincidence and essentially play that 1-3-1 with globals across the board to cause issues. It's crazy, but we could see it. It would actually make it very difficult for Fnatic to deal with, and they'd have to resort to just straight 5v5s to come out ahead.
And I actually don't think that's a bad idea. I think that the Karthus center bot lane, as I said, we've been seeing it in multiple other ERLs. We just saw Samsung Morningstar in the Italian league get to the finals with that specific bot lane too. So I'm thinking here, what else are we looking for if it's not the Karthus? Because as you said, we could be looking into pairing something up with the Senna here. Wukong is still available if you want to go for the classic Senna. Wukong normally is better into the likes of Ashe and Varus. That's what it was invented for. But with these 5 seconds ticking down, I don't have to speculate. I'm probably just going to see it.
Soraka, okay.
That's a different kind of global composition. It was not the
reverse
Karthus.
I mean, Soraka gives you like your lane sustain is absolutely godly. You stop a lot of the engage potential because you just, if a Galio is running towards you, you just put the Equinox down. It's like, what are you going to do, mate? You're going to run at me a little bit quicker? Cool, excellent. You can never actually get close enough to use any of your abilities. And it also kind of mitigates the Nautilus or even the Leona that you might see. The good thing about Leona is that she has the solar flare that she can get a little bit further away with her initial engage, but you can never like walk up and get the engage that you usually like with the Zenith Blade.
in general, I like hard engage into the likes of Soraka when you see them, especially when you got the likes of Volibear and you have Galio to dive onto these kind of squishy targets. But into the composition where you have a Nocturne and a Twisted Faith to help you out if such dives should come through, they might still be okay on the side of Dusty, but this is a really strong composition designed to play for Xmati on the side of Fnatic.
I'm a little concerned by Fnatic's comp here because they've essentially put all the eggs into the Xmati basket where they've got a bunch of tanks, bunch of engage, bunch of CC. But when I look at Dusty, this is a perfect setup to take a side laner. You have a 1-3-1, which they're going to struggle against because they need Xmati to be there to fight. And they have loads of global pressure. I mean, and even on top of that, if Xmati dies or he gets CC'd and isn't able to do damage, Soraka is just going to out-sustain everything. I feel like this is Dusty's opportunity to win this game because I think they've completely shattered them in the draft. Fnatic are going to have to come out all guns blazing and stomp this early game.
And we talked about easy to execute. When I said that, I thought maybe teamfight composition, but this is a different kind of easy to execute. This is so much comfort on the side of Dusty too. You even have Coincidence in a fine matchup for his Yorick. You got Chelm on a nice matchup for Shadowing and 1-3-1 composition here with the extra wish if you need help in a side lane. This is going to be interesting seeing these two matchups clashing onto each other.
Yeah, this is Legion's one of his best champions is Twisted Fate. Coincidence had that Yorick banned against him last split almost every single game. He drew Yorick bans specifically because of what he can do on this particular champion. I echo what Dan said. I echo that I do think there's a little bit of lack of sort of scaling damage as well in this composition. At some point you're relying solely on Xmati, but you do have to remember Aphelios is 200 years worth of champion design, so you know there is a lot of damage that he's got going in his kit. Guys, we're going to hand it over to our casters. It's going to be a change of pace. As you might have guessed, it's Trouble and Hit Frame.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. Get ready to go into the Fnatic versus Dusty game. Talk to me, Trouble. You're quite excited by all the globals in this game.
I mean, this is global central if I've ever seen a game. 4 globals on the side of Dusty, and then Coincidence gets the pick that's been banned versus him. I think almost maybe 95% of the time that he's played. I agree that this is definitely going to benefit him playing on the side lane, but execution-wise, I find what Fnatic is running much easier because, sure, you've got all the globals, you can basically roam around the map or be there by the presence of an ultimate and a press of a button, but if you look across the map, you've got Aphelios Leona, who are hard to dive, you've got Galio, who is very hard to dive, and On, who is also extremely hard to dive. So yes, you could be pulling the triggers in multiple lanes, but if you don't come out ahead or if you don't come out with a kill, I don't think you can snowball the game versus an Aphelios with so much frontline. So I think it's all on Dusty. Dusty needs to snowball this early game, or this is a very Fnatic favored game for me.
Yeah, I do agree with Orcs' concern in Fnatic's damage as we get later and later into the game is purely Xmati. And if Chelm gets a good ultimate off and just jumps onto Xmati, Legions comes in with a gold card, where's the damage for Dusty? Sorry, for Fnatic at that point? Because Dusty, you know, obviously they're not really looking to team fight, and Fnatic have incredible team fight tools. You've got the Volibear, you've got the Call of the Forge God, you've got the Solar Flare, you've got the Galio. It's hard to kill Xmati. I'll admit that. But if Xmati is killed, it feels like Dusty can just walk away with it. And Coincidence will probably just be off in a side lane. I remember watching so many games with Coincidence on this Yorick last season in the Nordics. And the amount of times where Dusty were losing and Coincidence solo won the game by split pushing on this champion.
You said it right. I love that you mentioned Coincidence because this guy is going to be a non-factor. Dusty is going to be playing the rest of the game 4v5. Unless Chelm later on to the game manages to kill the Ornn together with Coincidence, which is going to be extremely hard, assuming that they're both AD damage dealers, and that Ornn will be packing on that ammo to be able to withstand all this damage coming to him. This guy survives, Fnatic have the numbers advantage, and they have the forceful 100% hard engage with the Leona, with the Volibear. So this is why I'm saying the execution is harder for Dusty. Sure, it might be easier early game because they do have a lot more damage to go through with, but it has to be clean. And have we seen clean so far from Dusty? I'm still waiting.
On the other hand, we've seen clean from Fnatic 7 games in a row. Maybe you could argue a couple of those barrage games weren't as clean, but this is outside of maybe Magic Felix not being on a high damage mid laner. This is very much what we see from Fnatic. They draft a good team fighting comp and they just execute on those team fights. Now, Fnatic actually looking to see if they can find Chelm out and actually are going to be able to do so. The flash taunt comes in, massive knock up, and first blood easily picked up from Magic Felix. Beautifully played by Fnatic Rising there.
That was very well done. Magic Felix shoves in his mid lane and then roams away together with Dan. And this is exactly the style that Fnatic needed to start shutting down that Nocturne. The Nocturne will forever be behind right now. The second he doesn't start getting these kills, he doesn't start being a threat. Now he's gonna have to be very scared being his jungle. And you see Bravado and Xmati instantly move towards the top side of the river because they know Chilm, this is where he's going to be heading. They want to stop him from getting anything. Dan is going to run across the mid lane to try and deny the Scuttle Crab. They want to choke out that Nocturne. This is beautifully played by Fnatic so far.
This really puts Chelm behind as well. He needs that level 6.
He has no jungle. What's he going to farm?
Literally no jungle. He has nothing to do. The Gromp spawns up and that's his consolation prize. But Dan is using the pressure of a Fnatic have been able to assert for themselves with Magic Felix easily shoving through these mid lanes, especially now that he's got red and blue buff. Legions is also just never going to be able to outshove him here.
And this is a story, right? It's how easily are you going to be able to execute this composition? Because if you look across the lanes, Coincidence needs to be winning versus Pride. Pride plays the on, he will be losing gracefully to any matchup you put him against. Fine. Magic Felix should be getting the push in the mid lane, especially now that he has the double buffs as well. He'll be spamming his spells all the time. So Legend won't be able to roam the second he's level 6 because he has a wave to take care of. And Bravado and Xmati, they don't just have the push, they have the kill threat onto a Soraka Senna lane with the ignite that Bravado is styling with right here. So it's extremely scary for Dusty, of course.
It's a very scary start for Dusty. I have to see how this kind of goes as we move later and later into the game for them. Fnatic have pulled themselves ahead. A marginal lead at the moment of 500 gold. But Dragon spawning up and Fnatic looking to get that early. Is a Cloud not the most impactful, but if you are Chelm, getting 10% off your Paranoia is fairly nice. So it's actually, I'd say, a fairly nice denial. Also sets them up for a Dragon Soul win condition nice and early in the game with this 5-minute Drake. Could be looking at, if Fnatic can continue to control the map, a 20 to 21 minute Cloud Soul, sorry, not Cloud Soul, even Mountain or Ocean Soul, which is another win condition over to Fnatic.
Yeah, imagine a Mountain Soul with 4 tanks and an Aphelios. This is going to be actually insane for Fnatic if it works. I mean, not that Ocean's going to be bad, but yeah.
I think Ocean would be the worst case scenario for Dusty here.
I didn't want to give them the worst case. I gave them
okay,
I gave them a mildly bad case.
Jum's actually helping shove in this lane bot side. Does mean that Fiddle and Jack Spectra can go for a reset if they want.
Globals on the run towards that bot side. The second they smell that there could be a fight, they're like, I've got a global. Hey, I've got a global. We're on our way towards the bot side. So we need to keep track always of Magic Felix and Legions. The second they leave the lane, they can both impact the fight the same way. What scares me furthermore with the Dusty composition, though, is that the Soraka is the one farming here, which means that Jack Spectre is purely playing support Senna. Something that's going to be extremely difficult is that consistent damage that won't be coming through from an ADC for Dusty. So what I'm thinking here is, do you just play for side lane? Do you just play for Coincidence? And if you do, keep your eyes peeled on Legions and Chelm to go towards that top side and try to get that Yorick ahead. Because if you go into the late game, you have no consistent damage. That's it. You've got burst. Once your Nocturne dies, it's over.
I worry, though, because Magic Felix has his ultimate. So even if you do look to play towards Coincidence, Before you know it, you got the Galio on top of you as well. Pride's able to... Well, he'll be able to buy time. He's on an Ornn. So he's going to be okay getting Dove and just being able to throw out the CC and the survivability while he buys time for Magic Felix to come in. And this is one of the things that Dan actually hit on the desk yesterday. One of Magic Felix's main strength and one of the things that he was talking about, was it last season or the season before, where he made it to like top 10 on multiple challenges, on multiple accounts in the EU. One of the things that Magic Felix said really works is just the ability to walk out a lane. You shove, you disappear. No one knows where you are. On a Galio, that's 10 times as effective. At the moment, they don't actually know where Magic Felix is. It looks like they are going to jump onto Pride here. Sheln throws out the ultimate. The Call of the Forge God's in. A massive taunt will come out, but Coincidence is able to get the kill onto Pride, and Magic Felix a little bit too slow to the play as Dusty capitalize and get themselves a kill. Fnatic will answer out with the Rift Herald in the top lane for themselves, and they may just look to race for this first turret blood.
See, there's the difference there, right? Because Magic Felix was not in range to ult the Ornn. He had to only first TP and then try to ult it, which caused Pride to die. But nevertheless, Fnatic still are keeping the pressure. They're not losing CS in any lane. Every single lane is pushed, and then they're gonna shove gold onto who else? Xmati, because he's the one that's gonna carry them late game.
Jack's doing his best to try and clear through this wave slowly but surely. They have Legions waiting by, no Destiny available to him. The plate gold's picked up for free. And Dusty not going to cancel the base out of Xmati, so he's going to be able to go off and spend. He's got the Executioner's Calling, I'll get there eventually, and that pickaxe in his inventory. Actually, he decides not to go for the base yet. Cancels it.
So, we're 9 minutes in, and only 1,000 gold lead for Fnatic. I've never seen Fnatic get a lead and not close out a game. I've never seen them get ahead and then fall behind. These guys get ahead, they stay ahead. It's over. So this time it's up to, I feel like it's Coincidence versus the world at this point.
But
he needs to stay on a side lane. He needs to be calling all of his friends. And if you look in the inventory of Pride, Pride is ready. Pride is ready for both the Twisted Fate and the Nocturne coming at him with the globals. I think the further on we go, the harder it will be to get rid of Pride on a side lane.
It is so Coincidence, though. Coincidence versus the world is probably the best way to sum him up. Last season, I actually, if you didn't watch the Nordics, I can't emphasize how much this man put what was at the time a failing team on his back multiple times. So all eyes are on him. Like you said, though, Pride is starting to get pretty much equipped to deal with it. Magic Felix constantly got the shove, which actually denies Legions the ability to roam around the map. And Fnatic setting up to get themselves their second dragon the moment it spawns. They got the shove in the bot lane. They got the shove in the mid lane. Sure, Coincidence is pushing top lane, but he's not going to be able to get any plates. Pride's got way too much wave clear at the moment.
And the problem is going to be that now Fnatic is stacking up the dragons. One more, that means in 12 minutes, exactly 23 minutes into this game, Dusty are going to have to come out of hiding to deny a Mountain Soul. So the lesser of two evils, but still an evil, because with these shields, you will hardly be able to kill Pride in a side lane. Even if you put 3 people on him, I do believe that he still will be able to survive with the Mountain Soul. And do you come out of hiding? How do you fight 4v5? Because in a perfect scenario, Coincidence will never want to come in for a team fight.
And Mountain Soul this early is actually when it's really effective. When, you know, people's damage is a little bit lower. The shield at that point in the game is actually very nice. So it's actually a really good Drake for Fnatic to get early. And while it's the lesser of two evils, it's still evil.
Yeah.
So Dusty, maybe they look to contest the next dragon, but I just don't see how, because Fnatic have drafted a team fighting comp. And sure, that one issue of Fnatic only really have one damage profile isn't really going to be the problem yet, because Magic Felix at this point in the game is still going to be hurting on the Galio. It's not like he doesn't do any damage. And I don't feel like Dusty actually quite have the damage to cut through Xmati while dodging away on all of the CC from the front line.
You mentioned one damage profile, but then I look over to Dusty and say, okay, one damage profile. Who is going to build armor? who is gonna try to beat the tank for this team? Because the answer is no one. Even if you build Seeker's Arm Guard, imagine Aphelios with 3 items, he will cut straight through that. So there is no case where Dust is gonna get tanky enough for even that 1 damage profile dealing damage to them.
We haven't seen Chilm throw out a... oh, he has thrown down 1 Paranoia. So
And
far,
1 Destiny.
And 1 Destiny. We need to see these globals getting executed in a side lane for Dusty.
It's so hard. Pride is respecting them so much. All this time that we've been talking, Pride is not playing underneath his tower. He's playing in between tier 1 and tier 2. That's how much he's respecting the potential of a double global on him. And even when that is happening, he's missing CS. He's only 13 CS behind a Yorick that needs to already be snowballing. That is not a huge difference. The Own will eventually be the tank. He will be the frontline. And even if he doesn't, you have so many more people on Fnatic that can play frontline. So he doesn't necessarily care if he falls behind. Now, having a look at the inventory of Dusty, this is where you see that they want to start playing a little bit more aggressive. All these pink wards, all this control, they want the heralds, they want the dragons, they want to be able to play from an aggressive side, but Fnatic is just not letting them with all this priority.
Fnatic able to steal away the camp. They shove in the top lane, but they don't actually take it before the plates fall off. Fiddle and Jack Spectre were there quick enough, but I don't think this tower is going to survive for too much longer. Look at that health bar. Bring the camera up just a little bit more. There it is. Yeah, Fnatic's going to get first turret blood.
Estraraka would kill that tower.
Yeah. It's a solo turret as well to Xmadi, so just injecting more gold into this Aphelios. He's got the Infinity Edge. He's got the Executioners. Meanwhile, bot lane, Coincidence is going to look to try and trade out for a turret. He's got himself a Triforce. Hasn't actually got Maiden yet, but is able to take that turret out for himself. And Pride, like you said, playing with respect towards Coincidence. Even though everyone is leading topside, he still knows there's globals available to Legion and Chelm, so playing nice and respectfully here, not giving up too much. Only gone down once.
Ooh, check this out. Bravado is already backing off. That is a great reset from the Fnatic support. He's gonna grab 2 pinks and head straight down bot lane. 58 seconds for the next dragon. Fnatic is playing this so well. They're being patient. They know they have the better team composition right here. They know they have the winning team fight. Do they need to pull the trigger right now? Because the Senna is not going to do any damage. Fiddle only has an Unholy Grail for the heals. The Rod of Ages is not yet stacked onto Legions. The only guy who could do some damage is Coincidence, who doesn't want to actually team fight. And then on the other side, you have Proto Belt and Infinity Edge on the 2 carries. So Fnatic is going to hurt at this point.
We get a gold card off onto Magic Felix, but he's so tanky. He doesn't take anything really there. As Dusty able to kind of keep the wave in an okay spot for themselves. This dragon spawning up. You can see Coincidence making his way down. There is 1 pink ward on the opposite side of the pit, which Coincidence could always use to go for the flank, but Fnatic just want to break this fight out. Dan jumps in with the Stormbringer. Fiddle already very, very low. Railgun's thrown down by Jack Spectre as in comes the call of the Forge God from Pride. Gets himself the big knockup. Looks for the tower dive. The Wish is going to be used as that's a big knockup by Magic Felix. Able to get himself a kill onto Fiddle. And Dusty just don't have the damage to work with. They get onto Legions, but Legions has to go golden. Jack's trying to fire the damage out, but Dusty have nothing to work with. Chelm's in the bounce house and Dan takes him down. Fnatic get the team fight and they'll get the dragon.
And that's before the Aphelios items are running in. That's before the Volibear, the Ornn, and the Leona are more tanky than you can handle. And that was with your most fed member, which is Coincidence on that Yorick, and his 384's completed being in. This is gonna get even harder from now on from Fnatic. Fnatic need to come in, get the dragon, get out.
They are trying to contest. They've got that Maiden. Dragon. Very, very low. Magic Felix jumps in, gets the taunt off onto Jack Spectre. Coincidence trying to put the damage in as Bravado goes golden. That's going to be the end of Coincidence. Fiddle rejoins the fight. They do find themselves a quick return kill by Dusty. And that is the damage down for Fnatic. So Dusty feel eager to chase for more. Pride slows them down though. And Dusty are going to have to back off. It's 1 off Mountain Soul for Fnatic Rising.
a little bit more overzealous than you would want to be if you're Fnatic, but at this point, they're on the driver's seat. They're on soul point. They know that in 4.5 minutes, we could very well be saying GG for this game, and I think they know it too. Look at that. Battlefield is just TPing in their face. He doesn't care. He's just there to stop the TPs.
Yep, that turret's not going to take any damage at all. Let's have a little look at that play once again.
That is beautiful. Mati Felix is going in, allowing space for Dan to do the dragon. They don't need to do anything else. And right there, Xmat is like, I'm feeling it, have the Infernum ab, and he gets punished, but they absolutely don't care. They secure the dragon, they get out with most of their lives, and they're in a very good road to get their 8th win in a row. All eyes, again, on Coincidence. I can't see a single other champion on the side of Dusty. You can argue Soraka heals, Senna shields, Senna heals. Sure, yes, fine. But when this 200 years comes in, your heals are gonna mean nothing. What? Stop!
Steals it with the winds of war. It's only a blue buff, but they're just denying everything
insult to injury?
from Dusty.
What do they say? Yeah.
This is just textbook Fnatic Rising. They understand how their team comp works. They draft for team fight. They execute on those team fights, and Dusty just look lost right now.
Shelly got trolled right there. She's like, wait a minute. You guys promised me a tower. Where is he?
Well, it's going to be the mid lane tier 2. Dan's on that flank, looking for the openings. The Call of the Forge God comes down. Dan jumps in with the Stormbringer. Fizzle is just melted through. Easy kill for Fnatic and a tower to boot. They're just going to back off and look to go reset and spend some of that gold.
And that's exactly
split pushing away on the bot side.
That's exactly what was said at the start. But Fnatic has the brute force. Coincidence wants to stay on the sideline. Fair enough. Allow him. You're going to get so much more. The next objective on the map, 2 minutes 30 seconds, is going to be that soul. Coincidence is going to have to react. And he's going to be strong enough to take down X-Mati with all that front line.
Dusty do answer back with 2 turrets for themselves. Although the mid lane has been entirely opened up. Big wave getting caught up in the top side of the map. And Coincidence, if he wants to trade Dragon Soul for towers, top lane will put him on the opposite side of the map, and he is a long way away from actually being able to take more, as Legion's caught in the base, does have the gold card, the slows are on, and Pride looks to hunt him down. Chilm gonna look to slow them down as Legion's has to pop the top.
Oh my!
Magic Felix gets himself a killing spree, make it 2 for Fnatic, and that should just be Baron.
Ooh. Fnatic are running Dusty down every single time they get in the game. Their eyes are on the prize every single time. They know exactly what they need to do. And it's so hard because their opponents, every time the draft comes in, every time the win conditions come in, they play into Fnatic's hand. You want that hero to be split pushed on the sideline. How is he going to go through Baroned up minions? It's going to be that much harder. And Fnatic not only do they have the time to go for the Baron, they're going to push out their lanes and go for the soul. I'm trying to find a win condition.
It's still Coincidence, but every time a pick happens, it just makes it even harder, because we talked about how Fnatic, sure, their real damage as we get into the late game is only X-Mati, but that's kind of irrelevant when you're this far ahead in gold. When Magic Felix is this high up on the Galio, he's still going to be popping people. It's not a long time away from now where his damage really falls off. Fizzle just can't heal people through all this damage if he's dead at the beginning of every fight. Fnatic Rising, they just recognize exactly what they need to do to get ahead this game and stay ahead. Dan's on the flank, and Dusty trying to answer out some Baron minions, but they're unable to do so. Soul spawning up in 25 seconds, and Dan waiting for that opportunity to get the cheeky pick off. Coincidence has roamed over, but he's been spotted out on the wards. And Dusty actually just looking to brute force mid.
They're trying to pull the attention away from Fnatic, but Pride is literally the rock.
Oh no. What are they going to do here? That's already Fizzle forced to use the Wish. Chelm actually launches onto Xmadi on the back end as the Destiny comes in, instantly interrupted. The Legions can't come to save the day as Chelm gets taken out on the back end of the fight. Fnatic Rising find everything and more here. Moonlight Vigil by Xmadi as he mops up a double kill. Fnatic Rising just walking through Dusty in the team fight. Only Jack Spectre to defend. And this should just be Mountain Soul. And maybe a little
I
bit
think
more
they're going for the
Fnatic
game.
Rising.
I think they're going straight up for the game. Pride is on the bot lane. He's already pushing in the wave. Jack Spectre has absolutely zero wave clear, especially against Baron Dap minions. And there's more than 10 seconds for the people who matter from Dusty. I think this is game.
Fiddle's up. Jack got that slow from the Frozen Mallet, but man, there was an idea there, and I liked what Dusty tried, but the interrupt on the Destiny completely undid the play. Completely undid the play.
You did like what Dusty tried?
I mean, you're back to the wall that hard. You're getting engaged on. Jump on Xmadi. If you kill him, there's a hope. There's a hope.
So look
But
at this one. He
it was
gets a
just
full-man knock-up, and there's 3 rocks in the front line, right? Leona is coming down there with the Aphelios, and Xmadi just flashes away from Chilm. Even if the Twisted Fate lands, Bravado is right there, right next to Xmadi to stun him straight away. So even if they do make it down the back line, I think they would have been killed instantly from that Aphelios. He's just way too strong right now.
Yeah, he's got the Molten Edge. He's got the Hurricane. Got a second Zeal as well. So building towards that Phantom Dancer. I don't know. I said I liked what they did. And I stand by that. Was it the right play? Probably not. But in the heat of the moment, when Fnatic are engaging on you, shutting down Xmadi might be your best hope.
I mean, sure, who else are you going to ult?
Exactly,
You've got
right?
4 tanks and an ADC. Sure, you're going to press your R on the ADC.
Here comes the Stormbreaker. Call of the Forge God. Fizzle just on receiving end of everything. Uses that wish as they do get Magic Felix. Jumping in. Taunt lands down. Coincidence trying his best to be a frontline for the team. But Fnatic able to execute on to the turret and onto the support. This will be the next inhibitor falling down. Jack Spectre does take a Graviton to the face then. In goes Pride. Another taunt comes out by Magic Felix, and the health bars of Dusty are just evaporating to Fnatic Rising. The railgun is going to do nothing as in comes the ulti. Coincidence knocked up. Coincidence CC'd the day. It's a double kill once again. Picked up for Xmadi. Jack Spectre doing next to no damage right now. Fnatic Rising should just be looking to close this game out. The turrets will fall down. The Nexus has been left exposed, and Fnatic Rising get themselves their 8th win at the NLC.
I didn't have a doubt. Seeing how Dusty tried to approach the game, usually when you're going against a team like Fnatic, you need to play your comfort picks. You need to play the strongest picks and what you know you're really good at. Coincidence is great at Yorick, but there's 2 parts of the draft all the time. There's a part where it says, okay, how good is your composition overall? How well does it match 5 versus 5, and what does it want to do? And then what do your lanes do? And since they knew that Coincidence was going to be on the sideline, they're like, fine, we're just going to pop 4 globals on him and then have him win the sideline. Sure, Fnatic just brute forcing onto you, kill every single one of you. What's Coincidence gonna do on the sideline? I felt like they played into Fnatic's hand. Fnatic just drafted 4 tanks, and Xmadi was like, whoa, that's my favorite game of the split.
I mean, I said it. Sure, if you have a 1 damage comp, you kill the AD carry and the fight gets undone, but they didn't have a team fight for the side of Dusty, and if you get that far ahead as Fnatic, then it actually doesn't matter if you have a 1 damage comp, because who are you going to kill? He could just free fire away. It was a really, really clean game by Fnatic Rising, and not really unexpected, to be honest, to see Fnatic pick up another win back-to-back. Guys, we're going to end it there, but we're going to cut to a quick break, and when we're back, we'll have the analyst desk break down the Fnatic win over Dusty, so we'll see you in a second.
how much I could feel till I met you. It's like I'm seeing all the colors for the first time, and I'm hearing all the music for the first time. I watched you grow, sweeter than when spring warms the snow.
Welcome back, everybody. My light almost fell over behind my computer. That's why I was looking absolutely crazy at the start of this segment. Yes, okay. Fnatic, I think, comfortably took the win in that game. I don't think anybody was really expecting otherwise here. I think, realistically, like draft differences aside, what more can you say than Fnatic's just the better team? Like, how many times can we rehash that? How many times can we rephrase it? How many times can we just say that Fnatic is the best team in the NLC?
I think that you could do it all throughout the rest of the games, because I still don't think this is the team that's going to challenge Fnatic in this group. It might be XL in the other group of A, but I don't think that until playoffs that no one is going to challenge them. Oh, I think no one is going to challenge them. I think that today it's just the fundamentals are always correct on Fnatic. As when you look onto Dusty, you still see they don't always have the best read on, I don't want to say the matchup, but just the macro in general. You saw that they were behind the lane swaps in the beginning. You saw that they got snacked. They was able to sneak the first Drake under the nose, so they just got the ball rolling and put Dusty on a timer. First Drake came in between 5 and 6 minutes. And if they just kept on equalizing on Drakes as they spawn, the fourth soul would be up at 22 minutes in the game. So when you have 22 minutes to equalize on a composition, you miss out on the lane swap. There's just not much you can do there. Fnatic is just generally being the better team here.
Yeah, I think there were issues. I think we saw the early invade from Dan obviously put Chilman in an uncomfortable position. Bot lane weren't really able to match in any way. And as soon as you start stacking those early dragons, you force Dusty's hand. You put the game on a shorter time, and you force a situation where you're opting into a 5v5 to stop these dragons from being taken by Fnatic. And that's where the problem arose, because we had a Fnatic team who were ahead. The tanks on that lineup hadn't had opportunity to fall off in terms of their damage, and so they could just brute force through the Dusty composition, and there wasn't enough damage for Dusty to be able to deal with them. Ultimately, we needed multiple threats on Dusty to come online, and although there was a win condition later in the side lane, or even in team fights if Xmati gets dealt with, it didn't come to fruition because the early game just was a little bit mismanaged by Dusty.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. You know, when you're running a Twisted Fate Nocturne, you're expecting to have some kind of kill threat in a lane, especially bot side, and that just wasn't happening for Dusty. And as well as you said, losing early dragons, not what you want to do versus a comp like Fnatic. Well, you don't want to do it versus Fnatic in general. We actually have a player of the game, Orcs. Let's walk through this one, and you can tell us what you found most interesting about this game.
I think this is just to highlight some of the stellar team fighting that we see from Fnatic. I think the key thing I want you to look at is how close-knit Fnatic are in this situation. You see Dan pushes forward, and then as soon as he starts to feel threatened, he moves back to the rest of his team. And it's the unit around Xmati where there's this constant back and forth. So he's never isolated, he's never alone. You can see Chilm on the flank trying to find an angle. But in every situation, they pull back to make sure they're grouped, and it allows them to play around their health bars as well. You can see Pride, he's quite low. He starts to back away further and further. And by the end of the fight, everyone on Fnatic ends up pretty low on HP, but no one has gone down. It's just that fighting as a unit, you can see from their experience playing together, that really just favors them in these team fights.
It was like a StarCraft micro in a team fight. I loved it. Right, I have Nico the Pico standing by for an interview, so I'm going to bring him in. And we're like old hat now, me and you, Nico. We've chatted several times throughout this season. And honestly, I don't have much to ask you about that game. I don't really have much to ask you in general, because honestly, I feel like we've covered every aspect that we could have covered when it comes to Fnatic and the NLC. Okay. But I'm going to talk a little bit about something that Hatrix was talking to us about yesterday. And it's looking towards further afield from the NLC, looking towards the European Masters. And he was saying that there are regional differences in styles of play in terms of the way the Prime League plays, in terms of the way the SLO plays, and he compares that to the NLC, and he says that they are actively looking to try and learn from it. Is that something that you're actively doing at the moment? Are there any regions that you're particularly worried about? If you, I mean, we are all assuming that you will, but if you are to make it further into that European Masters competition?
Right now, we're not really looking at any of the other like EU Masters contenders at all. Like, we're just mostly focusing on ourselves and cleaning up our own play and making sure that we play the best game that we can. I think we are our biggest opponents ourselves. So until we know for sure that we are in EU Masters and we know for sure who our opponents are and we know brackets, like, then we will really start doing research. And up until that point, it's all about us.
I guess very focused mindset, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think you've talked to me a little bit about this in the past. You've said we are our biggest opponents, like you just said there. We make a lot of mistakes. What mistakes are you making? Because to the average viewer and to us, sometimes you look clean. So what is it that you feel like you're doing wrong? Like, what is it that you genuinely think could be improved about the Fnatic squad right now?
I think if you got to see scrims that we're doing, for example, versus Fnatic main team, it would be a lot more obvious that we have a lot of mistakes that we still need to clean up, more so than the games that we're playing in the NLC right now. We are still not really being contested, and we're just getting our way every single game that we play. We're getting our draft every single draft that we go through. We're happy with every single draft that we've had this split, I think. I think we're just crushed every single draft, and I think questionable draft decisions against us, and people don't really seem to be able to attack us in draft, and people are trying very different things, but it's like nothing is really hurting. So we're not being exposed how we should be on a more even field, I would say, but we are definitely getting contested in scrims from the top LEC teams. And it's more visible there for ourselves what our weaknesses are, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore.
Okay, that's fair. Like, there's definitely confidential information. Don't want to give away anything that could be exposed by teams in the future. Okay, talk to me about drafts then, because I think you've drafted a very specific style, all split, and I feel like you haven't really had to deviate or even wanted to deviate from that particular style of draft, and it kind of feels like you're very on the edge of like easy to execute in some way, like team fighty orientated, easy to execute style compositions. Is that, do you think, the optimal way to play League of Legends right now? Because there's so many different wild drafts coming out of the NLC. Like, do you just think that the sort of the ease of execution is really important? Do you just think that like, what is it that you actually look for in a draft in terms of like what a comp is supposed to do?
I think the meta has changed a bit throughout the split. Like, in the beginning, team who has Graves should win in general, unless you have a really good counter to the Graves like early in the split. Now it's a bit more changed. It's a bit of a different change in the priorities. Like, Graves is still fine, but it's not like as high priority. So that also changes what you're going to play around it, because that's just how it is. I think we don't have this like set draft that we're trying to create when we are drafting. We're more following through on our priorities and creating coherent drafts from the picks that we end up getting. So we're ready for a lot of different scenarios. We're target banning ourselves, and like when we're drafting before games, and just trying to make it awkward for ourselves and seeing what's going to be left open, and then trying to create coherent drafts from what's left. And so far we've succeeded, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, your record speaks for itself, Nico. I think if you'd failed, you would have had a loss. So thanks so much for joining me. I'm sure we'll become good friends at the end of this, mate, at the amount that we get to talk. And I'll hopefully get to see you later on in the quarter, or even just the playoff section, and maybe even at the finals. I'm sure you will. All right, so hearing from Nico again, and yeah, he's very confident. Nico, to me, is like the king of giving an answer without giving an answer. He should be a caster. He's very good at saying things without saying anything at all. But I guess he doesn't want to give away too much for Fnatic's draft there. You know.
Nah, to be fair, it makes a lot of sense, right? He's not going to spill all the beans, but I like how he's still being discreet about it, still being like, yeah, but we are scrimming, and as you can see, we have a lot of mistakes that are being punished here. To me, It sadly tells a story about a league that a team like Fnatic can be so far ahead. I really wish that it was more competitive towards the side of Fnatic. I think the middle of the pack in general has evolved in our league when these two regions combined, but it's still pretty clear that right now Fnatic are untouched.
I mean, you see it in a lot of leagues, though. Like LCS, just look at C9, right? They're absolutely dominant. No one could touch them. And then it takes you finding a unique way to challenge them to really step up. And that's what I expect. Like, I think Fnatic will be challenged at some point. It's not yet. It's probably not in their group. But maybe when they face BCXL, they'll have a bit of a harder game on their hands.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Medic. Sometimes it just takes the right key to unlock the door, and so far, Group B just hasn't had the right key. But like you said, there is a lot of other good teams like BTXL in this competition. BTXL have taken games off them before. They 2-0'd them in the previous split, so we'll have to see when we get to that stage of the competition if we even get that matchup, because we're not guaranteed that matchup as of yet. When we come back, we have our final game of the night, and that game will be Munster versus Barrage, a really important game for both of these teams. Don't go anywhere.